My name is Darya Bahram. I'm the Secretary General of the Association of Consultant Architects, also Research Associate at the Centre of Construction Law and Dispute Resolution School of Law, King's College, London. Absolutely. I mean, that's a question that's got no doubt how to say yes. I mean, if you think about its disruptive basically effect on all sorts of industries, is definitely here to stay. I would say that I think the potential was seen by the financial sector, by the regulatory compliance, and also insurance. Hence the reason we're kind of come to terms with and used to terminologies like fintech, regtech, and insurtech. So they've seen the potential, and they're actually, I would say, more advanced than other industries at the moment. It's kind of an interesting question. If you think about the fact that with blockchain you've got a kind of better management of or sort of more traceable supply chain, and you're able to digitally manage identity, it'll be very difficult to point a finger at an industry that it will not affect, to be honest. I would say it will have, as it says, disruptive effect right across the various industries. It's kind of an interesting question, and it'd be really quite nice to have kind of at this point a kind of crystal ball that kind of answer that question. But if you think about the effect of technology to date, basically, across sort of decades, or should I say the explosion of technology, it's the, blockchain as a disruptive technology could really have effects that, in the next couple of decades beyond what we can see. If you think about what internet, actually, the effect of internet for the last, I suppose 2 decades, within the society, within the various industries, we could see blockchain with that sort of basically disruption and more going forward. So I suppose if we think about the fact that we've now got a kind of convergence of technology and creativity, the fact that we can actually now see so much potential, it's going to be so difficult to actually, I would say actually kind of revert to that kind of and say that I suppose what we can see as potential and possibilities really is limited by the imagination of the inquirer, because it will have an effect on all sorts of areas. With regards to cities, data collection and analysis is kind of a key component of smart cities. So that's something that will definitely benefit. I think the question isn't to what it can do, because it's arrived already and you can see them in various industries. The question is, how do we actually try and implement this technology on type of infrastructure, cities, transport, energy, and so on, that's been structured and is operating on the basis of kind of a decade or century-old sort of mechanism. And I think that's going to be key. Otherwise, potentials are enormous. And whatever we can think, we're able now to start thinking and doing. But it's that we need to think about, not what, but how we're going to start to think about how is it that we're going to be able to utilize and use that. In terms of energy, I suppose, again, smart energy about better management of the grid. It's about optimizing production and distribution of the, sort of basically energy, more efficient use of it in buildings, how to manage it better so it becomes a more efficient use of energy. So the implications are enormous. Transport, the same way. I suppose with its sort of collection of the data, we can actually have better and more efficient movement of people and vehicles right across basically the transport sectors, and much more. So, as I said, the potentials and possibilities are enormous. We just need to find out how we could actually start implementing those. I think kind of sort of narrowing it down or zooming into kind of a construction context, I would say the kind of a better management of the supply chain. I think the kind of transparent, basically ledger transactions, the fact that we have kind of real-time information for the parties where we're able to then make a sort of immediate decision onto the various areas that we need. I mean, that's quite powerful. The fact that we can actually sort of trace assets, location, its ownership, kind of audit history, all of those are quite powerful. Also, I suppose the fact that we can actually make transactions more cost effective, so it becomes more streamlined and more efficient as a process. Again, that's another one. So I would say, yeah. I would say, again, within our kind of construction context, I think efficiency and speed in decision making is, and that's actually quite important, because with kind of decision making, improving sort of procurement processes and payment are kind of the areas that we really need to, within the construction context, to look at, because these are the areas that we need to look at, but also some areas where we actually have very dated and manual processes in place that we need to pull away from, that the blockchain is able to give us, but we need to be able to actually have the mindset and the change mindset to be able to adopt those. Okay, the mature, I think we touched on about the fintech, regtech and insurtech. So they're areas where we've started to see the benefits, and the sector has started to see the benefits. But in terms of sort of project design, delivery, and even operation within our sector, I would say we're actually kind of least into its adoption, and we're yet to embrace that kind of technology. So we're kind of well behind some of the other sectors. I think if we think about the fact that, again, within the construction context, if we actually think about the fact that we've actually got an industry that relies on payment, because we work on very low margins. So the issue is a late payment of invoices. So payment is kind of crucial. And if we are to be able to do that, then I go back to kind of what I touched on earlier. With the sort of blockchain technology and the information in real time available, hopefully we are able to make quicker decisions. And that would mean acting on those decisions quite quicker. And so basically we're able to address that. So I think that's an area that it's an issue within the industry, and I think it's one that I think would be good to kind of focus on, to be honest, especially, as I said, within the construction context. Within kind of construction, unfortunately, we have this hierarchical structure with kind of information flowing, or shall I say trickling, down from top down. And that's actually not a very efficient way of kind of working, but it's one that we're actually, it's sort of second nature to us. If we think about actually moving from that structure to a kind of a network structure, you would think that's a kind of a more efficient and collaborative way of working. But collaboration isn't exactly a kind of a word or a way of working that as an industry we're kind of used to. So I think we need to basically, to do that is not only a change of mindset, which is what I've talked about, but I think we need to move away from just sitting down and working on or operating on kind of two-party contract where we're used to kind of allocating risk rather than working collaboratively and managing it collaboratively. Because if you think about it, we're in an industry that produces, I always say, a kind of one-off prototype, okay? And that one-off prototype requires the input of numerous skills, so designers, contractors, subcontractors, suppliers, and so on. So we do need skill sets of all sorts to be able to produce this prototype. However, our kind of commercial model doesn't follow that. And that's really definitely a kind of a trust issue, that we can actually address with, as I said, a blockchain as one of the disruptive technologies where things have become a lot more transparent. So we need to move away from two-party contracts. That's our challenge. The way it's structured at the moment isn't. We need to move into basically a more of a network structure, but for that we need more collaborative working, more trust, and some of those could be addressed, some of those, in a sense, boxes could be addressed with the technology that's actually coming through or trickling through into our industry. It's going to really transform the way organizations, companies, government and individuals interact. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Also, it addresses, as I said, I've mentioned, a kind of a trust issue. And I don't mean trust just in terms of monetary transactions, in terms of the products and information that come through and so on. These are other areas. So really, it will help a great deal in all of these areas within our sector. I would say privacy and security and areas of threat, and I don't mean just threat of sort of basically someone hacking a system. Issues like sort of software issues and interoperabilities are some of the areas I can sort of think of immediately. In terms of sort of security, it's interesting actually, because I read somewhere recently that kind of the system was actually hijacked through the implementation of a separate software that actually created a say bifold and an extension to an existing system. And I thought that, wow, that's actually an interesting one. So I think as we're moving and enjoying the capabilities of this new technology, we're beginning to now see some of the areas of concern that we need to address. So I think it's a kind of an ongoing thing, really. At the moment, we've got our design and delivery and well, our whole process from sort of hasn't really embraced technology. So it's very difficult to kind of gauge the risk involved. The potential is enormous. I think the risk, I would say, it's how it's actually managed and how it's implemented, and I always found that, say, for example, when someone uses a system or even a contract or a software or a game, sometimes trying to say, well, this is rubbish, it's not working. But maybe it's the person who's actually using it, who doesn't use it properly, and so gives it a sort of a review that really isn't fair for its use. So I don't think there are risks involved. I think the potentials and possibilities are great, and I think it addresses, as I said, trust issues. But we need the risks. I would say the only risk I can is it requires a change in mindset. I think that we've found over time, and I'm talking about sort of more than decades, is that it's very difficult, that mindset, to change. So the risk is that we're going to be very slow actually adopting it, but this adoption is the way to go. On a sort of a note to really finish, I read somewhere that taking blockchain outside is sort of natural cryptocurrency sort of environment. It's meant to be a solution looking for a problem. Now, we have an industry that has a lot of problem looking for a solution, so maybe this is the combination of that we were actually looking for. Maybe it's the solution for that we're actually looking for. So I think, in that sense, it's a very exciting times, I think.